good evening, and welcome to another episode of Thought That Get Results. I'm Everett Weber Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to Let's Talk program in care of Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis, or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. And by the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Thought That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed, 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You got a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down, so that when you're getting on the show, you're well organized, and we take as many of you as we can. We ask first only that you be forceful with your point. You respect yourselves and then respect others, because we'll not accept anything we deem not within our broadcast standards. You can also follow this program via your Facebook page. Log on to us also via YouTube, or follow us also with the video on our website, www.vaughanradio.com. Look for the streaming live. You can also get us there. So a number of ways you can get us by video and audio. So please join us. Again, you can get the video feed via Facebook or YouTube. You click Vaughan Radio, you subscribe to us, or you can go to our website and look for the video. Only the best will do, and you will find us there. You log on. And of course, you've got, if you want the audio only or transmission, 860, and also you can get us on our website. Now, having done and said all that, tonight, Dr. Patricia Bartlett, good evening.
Good evening, Webo. Good evening to our listening and viewing audiences. I'm glad to know that the people can join us again and see us and see our expressions and all that, and I welcome that. I would like to say a pleasant evening to my fellow panelists. I haven't seen them for 2 weeks now, and it seems like such a long time. And while I have the mic, I would like to say good evening to my cousin, St. in St. Martin, in St. Kitts, Carl, our friend, there in St. Martin, and Ann Pam, Mr. Martin, in the USVI. And in the USA, I have a nephew there. I would just like to say a special good evening to him. And of course, in the UK, can't forget the people in the UK, because every time we come on, we have to point out that they really make a sacrifice as it relates to their rest time, to stay up to watch us and to listen to us. So I would like to just greet those people in the UK, in particular, Moses and his wife, and indeed my husband. Webo, I like your shirt. I don't know if everyone got an opportunity to see your shirt, but I'm hoping people were tuning in now, when it goes back to you, that they'll be able to see your shirt. It's a nice plaid shirt with blue and, you know, a little bit of green. You know, I like the mix, Webo. I like it very much. Good evening.
You got me blushing. Okay. Conrad Nile Libert, good evening.
Good evening, Webo. A pleasant good evening to your staff here at Vaughan Radio, to my colleagues, a pleasant good evening, and to everyone in tune to this program, viewing and listening audience, a pleasant good evening. Well, it seems like a lot of things is going on in a regional level. You know, the major storm over in Bahamas is of great concern to us. And, you know, I would like to highlight the question, what is global warming? And are we thinking along that lines at all? I don't often hear it mentioned in and around our circles sometimes here in the Caribbean, or you know, in St. Kitts Nevis. But we see, you know, the difference in the climatic conditions, and it makes me really want to advance the whole notion of global warming and put it up as an issue here. Not just here on Vaughan Radio, but on a regional issue, and to ask the question, what are we doing about it? Because we realize how much we are affected by it. It looks to me, Webo, like the whole region is threatened, you know, with impoverishedness when we are to deal with these storms on an annual basis, and there's such uncertainty about it. in that it can happen anytime. We used to hear that they're starting so far away from us. Now it seems like they're starting next to us. And Webo is of concern. Apart from that, it's been beautiful here on island. And I'm happy to be here this evening, Webo. Thanks once again for inviting me.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the listening and viewing audiences. Good evening to those who listen to us every week. Should I say every week? I did. On the Let's Talk program, your favorite program, through which you're informed with reference to information disseminated via Vaughan Radio and the Let's Talk show on Tuesday night. To all those who are listening to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin, we do ask to continue to listen to us as we gather information and disseminate that information to you so that you're informed as to what's going on around St. Kitts and Nevis, regionally and sometimes globally. Of course, now I mentioned about the terrible storm that has occurred, hurricane, and in that regard, we are blessed here for having that storm that just dropped some rain on us, but fortunately we've been spared of its wrath and ravage regarding to what has happened now to those people in the Bahamas. But of course, Nevis is really a truly blessed country, and some people may not understand the geographical location of Nevis and the structural size of Nevis with reference to Nevis Peak. But that Nevis Peak has spared us tremendous amount of hurricane damage over the years. And based on what we have heard, that the Bahamas, relatively flat, have been devastated based on what I've seen, some of the television images. But anyway, the Lord has been in the midst of all of us, and there are times when we are spared, and there are times when we too would bear the brunt of these powerful storms. But anyway, we pray for those people in the Bahamas, and we hope that they would have a speedy recovery, and we hope that many lives would be spared, even though the island might be underwater. Hope that people might still do well. Let's pray for all of them. Let's remember them in our prayers. Webo, good evening. I have a few more things to say later.
Just for my own edification and education, could you go back over the part about the fact that Nevis has this Nevis Peak and how it relates to the hurricane?
Well, Webo, if you were to look at where Nevis Peak is situated, it is on the eastern end of Nevis, and I will tell you, it is, of course, a physical structure, natural physical structure. And when the storm actually, with its gale force winds, come up against Nevis Peak, it has to go around. It can't go under. It might go over. But that area, of course, in terms of the mass of Nevis Peak, solid landmass, rising to 5,000.
Yeah, but how it relates to the... I'm just trying to...
It prevents the storm from devastating Nevis in the true sense of the word so many times.
Really?
We have had a hurricane in 1928, then the other one came in 1988.
Okay, I think I got you.
I think, and a few others came, but I will tell you, if you don't think that mountain plays a major role in sparing us from the ravages of those hurricanes, think again and ask some people who are within the sphere of understanding these massive storms.
But as I said, I got you. Okay, now you said you have a few more things to say. Naya, you had a couple of things you want to add as well?
I just wanted to highlight the storm. We can talk more about that later. But
okay. All right. I just want to make an ancillary comment, right? A lot of people would meet us, speak about the show, and they wanted me to mention this today, that I was engaged in conversation with a few folks, and sometimes, to be fair, I normally will say, so you like to listen to Edric? So I said this to this one lady, and she said, oh yes, but I prefer Naya. And I found out that was exciting, and then I figured out why. Naya, she had hair like yours. So it's a sister in, yeah. That's just a little light moment. Yes. This is Thought That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Naya Liebert, Dr. Patricia Bartlett. Your phone calls a little later on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. We'll be back after these.
From Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, Vaughn Radio.
Builders Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. We've got over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. Call them today at 466-4938.
Back in this episode of Thought That Get Results with Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Naya Liebert, and Edric W. Stanley. Before I go back for further comment, let me just read this very important notice from the Ministry of Education. The following is a notice from the Ministry of Education and Nevis Island Administration regarding students of the Ivor Walters Primary School. Although the infrastructural work is almost complete at the Ivor Walters Primary School, the Ministry of Education has taken the decision to extend the closure of the school until Friday, September 6, 2019. This is to allow the teachers at the school to create an inviting and child-friendly environment. All parents and guardians are asked to take note of the extension, and they look forward to welcoming the students on Monday, September 9th, 2019. End of the notice and of the release. Let's go back to the panel.
Well, I must say I'm glad that school has reopened, and it's always something that I hope that students, teachers, and all who are involved in education, including the entire island of St. Kitts and Nevis at large, with reference to the education of our children. The opportunity they get now in terms of what's been provided for them by government, they must take full advantage of it, because that opportunity comes practically once in a lifetime with reference to adolescents and teenagers regarding that period of learning. And therefore, I urge all those who are back in school to open your brain, be focused, listen to your teachers, learn as much as you can learn, and hence that would add to becoming a very good citizen with regard to how much you have in fact retained when you leave school. So congratulations to the Department of Education, the Board of Education, or the Ministry of Education, teachers, students, parents, and all those who are involved in education. Well, there is another matter that concerns me very much. I understood, based on a news clip, that some of the sponsors have in fact fell down on their commitment to follow through, to cough up, pay up, and therefore I wish we could have known those who have not coughed up and paid up, but yet may have received advertising. Since they have not paid, they have received free advertising during the Culturama festivities. And if you, in fact, have gotten free advertising as a sponsor, you should fulfill your obligation to the festival, because you would have received publicity, advertising, and ultimately you would have made money during the Culturama festivities. So why would you give a commitment to sponsor whether a troupe or one of the activities of Culturama and then fail to follow through with your monetary contribution? It is terrible, in my view, for you to have taken on such a commitment, and then in the middle of it you would have faltered. Well, I am saying to those who have done that, see if you can not only pay up what you got, but double up. Double up. It is our festival. We all have benefited, and the country at large, heavily dependent on the sponsorship. Those who in fact decided that they want to sponsor a troupe or whatever the activity might be, please follow through with your commitment. I could remember when Poppy Day came around, when we were going to school, and a song was coined. Before you make a promise, consider its importance. And when the promise is made, engrave it upon our heart. That, of course, was composed by our late James Emmanuel Kelly, who was principal of the Brownhill School at the time, because they were students who made the promise to buy a poppy to support the veterans of World War I and World War II. But of course, some of the parents could hardly find money, and therefore some of the students weren't able to follow through. So I'm saying that things are much better now, and those people who have taken the commitment to sponsor whatever activity they have decided to sponsor, please pay up. Webo.
Niall?
Well, I wasn't aware of that, Webber, but I can stand with Stanley with that. Of course, if you have made that commitment, you should really stand by your word, your commitment. I have not read the article. I have not heard about it in the public. But what I was made to understand that there was a delay in the prize giving ceremony. Not delay, but it was procrastinated for some reason. But I'm not sure for what reason. But now I'm putting one-on-one together and thinking, well, maybe that's the reason why. That is sad, Webo. If we are, to accept this as the norm, it can really make us all look bad. And of course, but sometimes, Webo, there's a lot more to it, and you always want that there's another side to every story.
And I was about to warn you again.
So, Webo, I would hold my, I'll zip my lip on that one until I get the facts, if I do get the facts. But, in a general sense, I am one who totally believes that one should live up to their commitments when they have, committed themselves to do something, regardless of what. Well, let me say something good and positive. And, yes, I zip my lip on that particular issue.
Dr. Bartlett?
Well, Weber, around here people don't like when the army man talk, they say, well, what the song said?
Let him talk.
Let the army man sing.
Yeah.
Sing. He sing. They don't like when the army man sing. But I have heard a statement was made by the director of the Cultural Secretariat, and it sounded as if he was trying to suggest that people who, the sponsors, I don't know which sponsors, whether it was government or, private, enterprise, I don't know, which sponsors he really meant. He meant really, it could have been government side too. I don't know, I'm just saying. He didn't name the people, but it's always good to have a contingency plan. And what I would say to him is, next year or years to come, if you're still there, have a contingency plan, or like people like Stanley wouldn't mind doubling up. He might be able to knock over an eye. I don't have to give really, because, things kind of rough with me. But, have a contingency plan. But I don't see any reason why you should delay giving the people the money, get the money from wherever you can, and when the sponsors give you, then you put it back. I mean, get a soft loan from SIDF, I don't know where you get it from, wherever. But pay the people the money before they start calling your name, you understand? That is how I would approach it, People sometimes make commitments or make promises. They're not necessarily commitments, mind you. A commitment is when you would have signed a contract. I would imagine if they had a contract that, they would be, bound legally. But if a man promises something and he doesn't come, you can't plan your life on what a man promised you. You must find the resources, and that is just what I think they ought to do and move forward with it.
But it's obviously there must be more substance to the promise. So I can almost say they were commitment. If you go on stage and say, well, so-and-so is sponsoring this, and they get their share of advertisement.
But you don't know that the people who got advertisement, if they have not paid. He said sponsors, government sponsor a lot of things too. How do you know it's not, I don't know, if exactly who. Is it, I'm done with that.
Well, a contract is a contract. It doesn't make any difference whether it is verbal or written.
They'll tell the politicians
A
that.
contract is a contract. It doesn't matter whether it is verbal or written,
Yes.
but it has two sides. You agree with that?
Yes.
Quite true.
And right now we are only hearing one.
Well,
You agree with that?
Well, I heard just that this sponsors.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so if you continue to proceed with one and then you end the case, then we know who will win. Right? To be fair.
Yeah.
And you see, that is what I am encouraging for these decades. Right? Because you can only bluff and mama guy for a period of time. I remember when they were doing the O.J. Simpson case, and the prosecution said they had a mountain of evidence. And when they were finished presenting that, it seemed as if they had won. Then we all know the rest is history, right? Yes. So, and this is not to try to say anything against one or the other, but I'm just saying we must try not, at best, always to have a fair debate, a fair discussion. Not that at the end of the day it will necessarily change a person's opinion or views or how they look at it, but we must have a good, fair debate, right?
Well, I would say this, that if misinformation has been disseminated, then the person who would have given misinformation or half side of information has a responsibility to come clean. And therefore, if they have not come clean, they too should really bear the public wrath. So it is important that once information is going to be disseminated, you get your information correctly and then disseminate it to us, for public consumption, and for us to have our own take on it, and ultimately to drill to the point where we too can lay the affairs of the public, that they must come clean. So it's not only the sponsors who, whatever the matter might be, or those who gave out the information, they have a responsibility to let us know exactly how things are. Come back and tell us how things are, because we all live in this one community, one people, one destiny. Webo.
All right, anything else we want to get on to?
Just an observation. I don't know who would have been following the developments today as it relates to what happened in Parliament, but apparently the National Assembly election bill was withdrawn. And I thought that was quite interesting. So before I even say what I think about it, I would just invite, comments from other people.
Sorry, I won't be able to comment on that. I'm not abreast with that particular happening.
Now, could you come closer to the microphone?
I was saying I won't be able to comment on that. I'm not abreast with that particular happening. I was in the field all day, of course, and not been following that matter of Parliament. Mr. Stanley?
I call my name, but of course I have been listening with the hope that I would have heard on the news this afternoon what would have transpired. And in as much as I did not get the conclusion as to what occurred in Parliament, I'm somewhat limited to comment on the matter. I understood that the bill was I understood through the grapevine that there were debates, and of course people had what they had to say. I didn't hear anything simply because I too was fully engaged on a matter that took more time than I anticipated. But I really relied heavily on the 6 o'clock news from the mics on Vaughan Radio with the hope that they would have come up with a conclusion regarding that debate. But I didn't hear a word on it, and in as much as I didn't hear anything, it may not have been concluded to the point where Vaughan factors into each news item. But if it has been withdrawn, I think it is somewhat politically earth-shattering because it is a bill based on what Pat is saying that has been withdrawn. That was of great importance one way or the other. It has been withdrawn, and it tells that there was a certain amount of pressure brought to bear on the proceedings with reference to its withdrawal. But I would not go to speculate with regard to what I've heard, because it might be misinformation. But again, a bill of this importance, the withdrawing it speaks volumes. And in this regard, we're hoping that somewhere along the line, Vaughan, which is the radio station that I have kept tuned to, I could give at a ceremony, well, not a ceremony, but a homegoing ceremony, let me put it that way, that somebody bought a radio many, many years ago, and it has been placed on Vaughan Radio and has never changed its dial. So mine is almost, mine is the same way, you understand? So I get my information, radio information, through Vaughan. So I'm heavily relying on Vaughan to bring the rest of parliamentary proceedings on that earth-shattering matter, politically earth-shattering matter, for me to be able to comment on it more expansively. But
well, Webo, if I may just update the part I would have heard or what I saw in the public media, is that the bill that was, as some people look at it as a bill that was going to stop people from being able, the overseas voters to vote, to participate in our local elections. So that was on the table, but it was withdrawn. The opposition, I understand, is taking full credit for bringing the pressure to bear that Mr. Stanley may have referenced, why it would have been withdrawn. But I personally, I wish we could have debated it, but it doesn't make any sense for me to go on if everybody not up to speed with it. So I can probably just defer that until next week or some other time in the future when everybody, is kind of up to speed with, as it relates to that. Yeah,
well, it wasn't debated in the House, as you indicated. It, what they would do, they would introduce an agenda paper, order paper, or whatever. I think it's an order paper. And it would list a number of bills as it did for the sit-in today. And my information is that at the start of Parliament, the Speaker was advised that two of the bills, that particular bill that you mentioned included, were withdrawn by the presenter, which is the government side.
The Attorney General.
Right. And so they didn't have to, and they didn't give a specific reason. And my guidance is that it does not mean that it cannot be presented at another sitting or anything of that nature. But that basically is what happened, and so there was no debate, further debate or discussion on it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm saying that it doesn't make any sense to
Right.
try to discuss it if other people don't really know what went on. But it is interesting though that it was withdrawn because some people like I said, and it's interesting that the opposition is taking credit for it being withdrawn. So those are the two notes that I wanted to make, and I'll just leave it there for now.
Yeah, but but I find it's pretty close to an election to be tabling that and going through and being conclusive on that matter, regardless of what would have happened.
I thought so too.
It's
but-
pretty close to an election. I mean, we got to be careful here when we're dealing with the public, and too often we see that governments are trying to do something of vital importance that would affect the landscape of the whole voting system. And it's very close to the end of the election. I mean, that's what happened on the Labour Party with trying to change the boundaries. We're not hearing much about that and any boundary at all. So I guess all is well in that respect.
No, that has to be settled too.
That has been said.
Until you get close to the election again, right? Well, the thing I would like to just point out in relation to that is the point that I brought up not last week, but the week before, and other times before, and I, compared it to cricket and the rules of the game and so on and so forth. And I really think that it is a good analogy. There are certain things that must be of such magnitude and structure. For instance, you don't change a constitution every day or every 5 years. There are certain laws or principles or rules, the fundamental structure of them, you don't change at every go-around. And there are certain things, therefore, that must take a lot of work and planning and scrutiny before it comes into place, because it has to, it is a foundation on which something is built. And I mentioned Dominica the last time, and Antigua and the other islands too, because the last 20 years or so, as opposed to the previous maybe 40, every minute you hear somebody wants electoral reform. And when you study what they really want, sometimes it's sinister.
It's the upper hand, eh?
Yes. Rather than
That is politics.
rather than shape your team to play within the rules prescribed and win, you change. So we really got to be careful with it. And I remember having the discussion, and there was a caller who called and pointed out very forcefully how a particular aspect of the electoral law and how this cannot and should not be done. And I just politely reminded the caller, but it was done. And it was called, what it was called? Reconfirmation. Because it suited the persons at the time. But it wouldn't last. You see, so we got to be careful. There are certain things that we got to be careful with, just not changing it willy-nilly. Now, having said that, I'm not saying that we shouldn't change the voting system one way or the other. But what I have said in relation to that particular bill or that particular subject, it could provide a good debate.
And I was hoping for one tonight, but I guess we're not prepared for it, so when we're ready. So,
Well,
Okay. Yes. Edric, you had other things to put on the table.
I just heard about this amount of money that was sent to Nevis, and for some reason, this $200 million. And I tell you, I've seen it all over the place here. And I am hoping that we're going to get 200 million more, because we do need it.
You know, on that, what I find is interesting, somebody a few weeks ago attempted to bring up the discussion here, and I quietly deferred it to the next day, right? And I didn't think that they really, think that was a good deferral. But my point is, I will always say to people, for instance, I'm always willing to help. And we here always willing to help. But here's an example. A lady called me. Remember when we had the storm passing a few days ago? So a lady calls me about minutes to 7 in the morning. Answered off here, and she said she doesn't have any electricity. I said, well, did you call Nevlec? She said, yes. I said, and what did they say? She said, they said they're coming. I said, all right, so they'll come. They'll get it sorted out. No, I said it was minutes to 7. She said, but that's since after 6. Now, I mean, if you wanted a light moment, I'm game for that. But I'm saying, right? She did the right thing. She didn't have any electricity. First decision, you call it electricity company, right? So the folks says, okay, we're coming, we're on our way. We're giving them a reasonable time.
Well, what is reasonable for you might not be reasonable for her. She
So
wants service in 10 minutes.
okay, so she decides to get it from me.
So she's calling you to make an issue for her.
To get
Well, we live in a very interesting place.
But the point I'm making is that I'm encouraging us as a people to try and be reasonable and fair. And, to be logical and organized to rid yourself of some of the issues. So the $200 million biz question, I thought and still think that the Honorable Premier, Mr. Brantley, comes here every Wednesday night. And I've never seen him yet afraid, shirk his responsibility. And I thought that that would be the best, most factual report you can get. Not that we were afraid to discuss it or anything, right? Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening, Rebel. I am listening to you, and I'm wondering, what were you expecting that lady to do when you purport yourself as only the best will do? And we have come to depend on Vaughn Radio to make things happen. Hello?
Well, yeah, well I'm trying to follow you. And might I ask, because I didn't get it, what you think she was expecting me to do?
You to make the call or say it publicly on the radio that she needs help. Come quick.
But maybe if she brought it across to me that it was a dire, emergency, you know what I'm saying? But to me, with those facts, you got to be reasonable. You got a storm. They said they're on the way. They're coming. So. But then she's right. So what? So my view of the situation was, all right, give them a little time.
You, Webo, have you ever had anybody tell you they're on the way, they're coming, and you swear they're coming from San Juan?
Yeah. Well, let's put in a light moment. A fella left Brownhill, driving at 2 o'clock I don't remember the exact hour, but he took 6 hours to reach Butlers.
Okay. These things happen.
Right, but in this particular case, to be fair, she calls after 6. It was minutes to 7.
Well, after 6 is 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes after 6.
Okay.
Minutes before 7 is 5 minutes to 7. That's almost an hour.
All right, I got you.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
But to be fair, like the caller just said, you purport yourself to being Mr. Helper. So if people want help, we expect them to call.
But I did.
Yes.
To be fair to me, I said, all right, let's get him a little while. They'll come.
Yes, Mr. Helper, and that was very good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What about anything else, or can I just?
Let's go on.
Okay. Within recent times, I've not been one to get in on the discussion, but I've been listening attentively. There's quite a bit being said about this truce, and I know that crime is something that we have discussed time and time again here, and we all have all kind of interventions that we think should be tried. And first, I would like to just commend the police for at least changing the strategy and getting us to the point where we are now. We are, compared to previous times, we were in really bad shape. But I'm hearing a lot of noise, and people are asking how much money is being paid to these guys and all kind of things. I mean, money being paid to other people for other things. And I said to a friend of mine the other day, why are you making a fuss about money being paid, to keep the peace? Peace is not free, The UN have peacekeepers all over the world, and they have to pay. And it's a lot of money to keep the peace. What would we rather have, fight a war or keep the peace? And I really support the initiative, and I just want to say that publicly for what it's worth, because me, I like peace, I endorsed the idea of the truce ever since, I've been, a proponent of that for quite a long time, and I'm glad that we're at the point that we're at. And I just want to appeal to our people, just leave things be. Let us pay who we got to pay to keep the peace, because it is money well spent as far as I'm concerned. I like the peace, Weber.
Quite some time ago, when this information was brought to my desk, I said, well, whatever it is, no matter how much is paid, it is less than the cost of a life. And in that regard, whatever they have to do with reference to saving a life or lives, continue to do it, because I'll tell you, it is quite damaging to hear, oh, there was another fatality, whether it's in St. Kitts or Nevis, but not hearing anything in that regard. I am saying to those, whoever brought the idea, it is bearing a tremendous amount of fruit. And we don't have that bad publicity on the front page of the newspaper, nor over the airwaves or via television, as the case might be. So therefore, the idea is now bearing fruit and continue. And whoever brought that idea to the fore must be commended, because we are looking for solution to a myriad of our problems. And whatever solutions we can tap into that bring results, especially the saving of lives, my congratulatory message goes out to everybody. And maybe it's the hand of the Lord that brought this to the fore. Anyway, Webo, let me bring another thing.
But I must say, just on that particular matter, because what I've heard, it's a bit worrying, really. And I can't believe it's really true. But I've heard people as being paid to basically, not cause any problems that will lead to gun violence and so forth. But it's good that they find people that's been doing it to start with. I must say that. And going forward, the government must not be held at ransom by these peacekeepers, in a sense that when they're out of order, I'm talking about the government, then the killings start again, and the social unrest start. It to me is a very sensitive gesture, and it must be followed through with not just paying people, but of course, engaging them, because too long these people who's been causing trouble, I think at times they don't feel like they're part of the equation whereby people get opportunity, people are respected, and people are counted, and seen in the same light, that they can become good citizens and can contribute to the development of the place. I'm wondering, what would be the long run spin-off of this? Of course, everything in these little places tend to have a political ingredient, and one wonder, how long the peace would last. Because
Niall, let me just take this. I'll get right back to you. Thank you for holding. Go ahead.
Okay. I've been listening to the program, but then I am wondering, it keeps me to wonder if it is true that government or somebody who have to pay people as to keep the peace. I mean, where will we be able to get this money from? And then in case that they want to increase, they feel that the money is too short or too little, they're going to decide they want more. So you're going to have this thing happen again. So, I mean, I don't know if this is the right solution. If it is so, I don't know if it is true. But if it is true, I would like to know. Thank you.
Basically supportive, of the caller concerns. Consequently, obviously, we have been relief of the turmoil and the situations that we've been speaking of, at least, for a while, and one would hope that it continues. But I don't think money should be the basis of suppressing it or wiping it out, or it may never be the basis of wiping it out completely. I just don't want to know that these people, as they have been, because the criminals seems to be running the place back then. Nobody can say anything. People have things to tell the police, and they're afraid. Witness can't go courts. So the criminals are big. The criminals, are almost controlling the place.
Wherever you go, that's the case.
Well, that's the case, but that's the case.
You have the mafia in some places.
Yeah.
Wherever you go, you have those elements, though. But on a serious note, though, if I may interrupt you for just
I'm
1
serious.
second, though.
I'm not sure
The thing is, what we heard is that it was initiated by the guys themselves. That's what we heard. That's what we've been hearing, that the gang members themselves made the decision to call a truce. So if someone says, okay, well, let me help you to maintain it, then what is the issue? Is it that you're being bought, or is it that you're being supported? And I have no issue with supporting
so is
the
it the
guys.
government who paying?
I don't know.
Well, these are
but
things
I
I would
understand
like
that
to
there
know.
are programs in place to support them. And what is wrong with that? If you have people in the community, and for whatever reason they need the support.
Something is not all right with that,
But if they need the support, other people are getting support for other things. I mean, what is money?
They
I
need
think
the
well
support for
spent.
not being criminals.
No. If you want to change, if you want to effect a change, then there must be a cost to it.
But I'm not saying it's absolutely
And if
wrong.
you're going to
I'm
give a
just
man a
saying
chance to transition from one lifestyle to the other, obviously he's going to need a support. If tomorrow, when we were in sugarcane, and we wanted to get out of sugarcane, must have something to tide us over until we get into selling the passport, you understand? But we need something to keep us gainfully employed and keep us out of trouble. And if that is what the programs are, the supporting programs are, why should we have a problem with that? We are paying people $500 a month for what? Because they're making less. Well, hopefully, I'll be able to qualify for that soon. But you see, the thing is, we must be able to support the other people, people in the community who are not necessarily mainstream. they need support. And if we don't have the programs, and the thing is, like I said, money being dished out for other things. You have PAP, you got, PEP, you have all kind of other things. Why not, widen, the scope of what you're doing in order to get meaningful change? And I felt so good the other day when I picked up this thing and it was talking about the advisories, because normally the US would put out an advisory on the different countries based on the status, use crime status and stuff like that. And I felt so good when we were listed, like in the class that says, it is safe. You don't have any advisories against these people at this point, It felt so good, and I think that in itself could only help with our tourism product that we're, putting out there, because if you look at it, tourism is what is going on. Nothing else really, is making much of an impact except maybe for the passport selling.
The truth is, I don't know the extent of the program or even the nature of the program. And one would hope it is a program that would come to an end. Because people just can't make a living off of, keeping the peace, knowing that obviously these are criminal. But I just cannot digest it. I think it's a very sensitive issue.
It is.
A very sensitive issue, and the outcome is yet to be seen. A short-term consequence with less crime. But let's see how this played. I think these things will be well supported by of course, maybe social programs. And I'm not saying they are not. As I say, I'm not aware of the extent and the nature of the exercise. So let's see going forward. It's quite something to digest and think it's totally okay. Well, most of the things that government is giving people money for is a waste of money too, and it's based on some political ingredient. I mean, look how they're running the step or the PEP anyway, and other things. So in light of in light of all that, one will only hope that this program is seriously managed and would tapered out somewhere along the line, and people could be re-socialize and of course be what they want them to be.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite a challenge to get them reintegrated, and I'm hoping, and that is the thing. If you can have programs now, that would kind of not, well, you're supporting the chaps now who are in gangs and want to get out, but if you have programs that prevent young people to gravitate towards that kind of lifestyle, I think that is money well spent. In the short term, if I don't know, if a man wants a little change and there's a program that allows him to get some, I have no problem with that, to be quite honest with you, because I'd rather you do that than for him to rob me. So it is a delicate thing. And I've heard about it for a long time. I haven't spoken about it, but it's just getting to the point now that I'm tired of hearing people beat up on this program that they don't really know about, because the thing is the mystery. A lot of people don't know what is going on, and people want to know how much is being spent and all that. Why you don't ask how much is being spent on some of the other things? Why are you targeting that? You want the place to go back to the wild, wild west that we used to have? I mean, leave it alone. Some things are just best left alone, I think.
As the year progresses, we would actually use a barometer to make a determination as to how many deaths have occurred as a result of violent activity coming from this particular avenue of our society. And if it has gone on, I'm talking about the curtailment of losing lives has gone on for the past, let's say, 4 months. And if we were now to make a comparison with reference to where we were in 2018 in September, say, 3rd, as to how many lives had been lost, maybe 15 as the case might be. I do not know what the numbers are, but for the past 4 months, let's say, we have had a curtailment of the loss of lives in that regard. And if somebody can call in and tell us where we were in 2018, 2017, 2016, and where we are now in 2019, if or numbers are lower, then obviously it is something that is working. And I cannot understand those people who would attempt to criticize it or wanting information or categorizing it as not being a good thing, then for some reason they're not looking at the barometer. I do not know how many lives by September this year have been lost. But if you were to compare it with the year before, I am almost certain that the year before, around this time, the numbers were higher.
Is the program in Nevis as well?
So,
No, you won't come to the microphone.
Is the program in Nevis as well?
well, we know that what has happened in Nevis happened in St. Kitts. We know this month you would hear somebody got gunned down in St. Kitts, or this, or today, as the case might be, and this would be the 7th in Nevis, and maybe the 10th in St. Kitts, as the case might be. So the program is happening in the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis. And people, when they asked me, I said, it is predicated on our educational system. The system is the same in St. Kitts as it is in Nevis, and as a result, those people who are unable to rationalize or to come to grips with certain aspects of life, makes no difference whether it is St. Kitts or Nevis.
Oh, it makes a difference whether it's St. Kitts or Nevis. It does make a difference. Come on, be careful.
Well, when you look at the population size and you truly make the comparison, it really does make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. It is based on our educational system. Those people who do have a proper education in terms of able to control themselves psychologically, emotionally, as the case might be, we know that they're able to keep themselves out of trouble. So, again, the program is working, and the bottom line is the fact that lives are being saved.
That is good, but is the program...
And ultimately, our people
operating
no longer can say the men
okay,
are dying.
Let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Weber. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing very well. I am just calling to thank you for allowing us to announce our Nevis dance and to tell you it was a success. And we have been using Vaughan from Vaughan started until now, and I'm just thanking you for the service. And this year especially, we needed you more than ever because they had double booked the hall that we usually use, and we had to find some place. And because of Vaughan and the notice, we were able to make the change and kept the crowd, and we had more people than ever. So I'm just calling, and we don't take it for granted. I'm just calling you to let you know we appreciate you announcing what we are doing for us. Well, thank you very much.
Well, it's good to know that you got organized in your success, because at the end of the day, it is for a very charitable cause, benefiting in the end the folks from Nevis. And so we congratulate you and we thank you very much for the work that you and your committee continue to do.
Thank you very much. And Stanley and everyone there, have a good evening. I'm listening.
Good evening.
Okay.
Thanks, General
Yes,
Zadio.
yes, Mr. Stanley.
Well, I think I've said my mouthful with reference to coming up with a comparison, and the ultimate gain is
save lives.
Lives.
But that doesn't answer my question. Is the program working on Nevis? Is the exercise being undertaken on the island of Nevis? Because there are things that are federal, but we don't see it here. To draw an example, the roof fixing exercise after the last hurricane, it wasn't happening on Nevis. Now this is a program to combat crime, and Nevis is not much less than St. Kitts in terms of the number of murder. In fact, I think we started this year. It was my son. So I'm asking if the program is being is in any way unfolding on Nevis. No one seems to have an answer to that.
Well, the answer is obvious.
What?
You're not hearing any deaths.
Okay.
If you're not hearing any deaths in Nevis, when you were hearing before, then what do we got to get a bullhorn to come and maybe shout in front of Niles Gate and say, hey, look, we haven't had any deaths this month, or we haven't had any deaths last month, as the case might be. I'm just saying that it is obvious, and therefore keep your ears to the ground and count. Or stop counting. We stop counting because I think
It is
the
obvious
program,
that the program is on Nevis.
the program is working.
I can't answer the question as it relates to whether or not it is operating here. However, all I would say is I would join Stanley in saying that the impact seemed to be, nationwide. And I'm hoping that, because sometimes people do copycat kind of things, so I'm hoping that that is what we used to have over here, that when something happens in St. Kitts, we think that we could do the same thing. And I'm hoping that because it has ceased there, then, well, let me just say it has ceased, because that's what I really wish for. And so likewise, we're doing the same over here. And I hope that it is infectious, and I hope that whatever support, that as a community, we can give, we ought to be involved, I think, for the long term, because it's going to include a lot of different facets. I don't think that it is, like you said, like some people are saying that the guys are behaving because they're being paid. To me that doesn't make no sense, because it is for their own good that they behave. But let's see how long the program. I'm calling it a program because I really don't want to call it a scheme. Let's hope that continues, and it is something that is supportive and something that is sustainable. And we have to always stress the issue of things being sustainable, because things that are not sustainable, they'll just work for a little while and then afterwards we revert to how it used to be, and I don't think we want to get back there. So whatever can be done to sustain this piece, I'm hoping that it would be done. And like I said, I'm inviting people to come back to church. I go to church as often as I can myself. My mom still goes at 90, and there's no good reason why people at 19 can't go. But I don't know what we need to do in church to invite these young people back, but and use the microphone to encourage them, because I know that has been a good influence on my life. The things that people would do to me, I wouldn't feel like I should do back to them. I just don't live that way anymore. Recognizing that we are just here for a short period of time, it is good to be able to live good with people. I see people do some things, and you're like, that is the reason why killing wouldn't stop, because people take advantage of other people, but you have to have a mindset not to treat people the way that they treat you. You have to be, and you get that from Sunday school, you get that from church. When you come, you're constantly you're bombarded by these things. When you come to church, do good. Even if other people are not doing good, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do good. And if we have more people who thought like that, I think that this place you wouldn't have to pay anybody to keep the peace. You wouldn't have to pay anybody to behave themselves. It would just be natural, because they say train up a child in the way you should go. But if your children are not going to church, they're not going to Sunday school, where are they going to learn these values? It's not likely they're going to pick them up in school, because when they go to school and mix and mingle with people who themselves don't go to church. So I'm encouraging people, send your children, well, not send, take your kids back to church, take your kids back to Sunday school, and see if we can build a better society.
I'm due for a break, but Dr. Barrett, just a little question. You were making a point, and you were going to use the word program. You said not calling it a scheme. What's the difference?
The connotation. The thing is, around here, when people say people are scheming, it usually suggests that it's something bad. And so that's why I wanted to change it to a little more politically correct, terminology. So that's why I said, let us call it a program.
The reason why I asked you that, what I find is interesting, that in formal presentations and gatherings, they normally refer to Social Security as a Social Security scheme, no?
Yes, those were in the days when people were not so tricksy.
but still, anyway. This is Thought That Get Results with Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Nye Liebert, Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700 back after these.
rattle and vibrate. The whole Caribbean must shake.
860 AM, the Powerhouse.
Builder's Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. We've got over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builder's Paradise has what you need. Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. Call them today at 466-4938.
Sugar City St. Kitts. Keep it sweet. Keep listening to Vaughn.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Liebert, Dr. Patricia Bartlett. Let's go back to the panel.
Well, I recognize that the BICO people have received some semblance of collecting from that failed policy of British American Insurance. And if I were to say this, it is nice to know that pressure has been brought to bear on the powers that be. Even though it is a little late, it is better late than never. And they have in fact collected something, and with the hope that if things are put in place, they'll collect a little more later on. And I must say the efforts are made by government, all the governments within the region, to ensure that those people who made contributions to British American and whatever its affiliates have been able to collect a little something based on what they've put aside over a number of years.
But that was a scheme?
It was an investment program.
But that's what I was asking. You see, sometimes I would ask a question and people would take light of it, but sometimes it's deep.
Well, some people...
was that a scheme or a program? And the question I asked Dr. Bartlett was if there was a difference.
Well, I am going to say that there was a company set up, and based on the company structure, they call some of the products they sold annuities or endowments. I don't call that a scheme.
You call it a program?
It was a policy within the framework of a company licensed to do business with the public with reference to putting aside money, and at maturity date, your money would be returned to you in a specific amount based on your continuity of paying, based on the continuation of your payments.
Within the context, under the headings of program or scheme, it was neither?
It was neither.
So it wasn't a program?
It was not a program.
And it wasn't a scheme?
It was a structure within a company.
How would you define a scheme? And give me an example.
Well, I think Pat has given you a good definition. There's no need for me to try to add to that.
Okay, Pat, what was your...
I didn't give a definition.
Because I didn't hear
a distinction.
Well, maybe it was a poor choice of word on my part, but I want to leave it at that.
But Webo, I personally look at all insurance, as schemes. Because Stanley just went to tell you about how much you put in on a continuous basis, and so you really expect at the end of it to get it back.
Yes.
And too often people don't get back what they expect.
So that's a scheme.
That is what I would call a scheme.
Okay.
If I were to use scheme, in that way.
So Stanley, was it a scheme?
Well,
because you referred me and you used Dr. Bartlett's definition to accentuate your point, didn't you not?
If you want to put it that way, but I'm telling you.
So you did?
Based on the structure of a company.
So you did?
I don't remember what I did in terms of exactly how I framed it. But I didn't go down the road of calling it a scheme. and you were asking me if it was a program. I said, well, I wouldn't call it a program either. It was a structure within a licensed company to do business with the public, and they labeled it an annuity or an endowment. Those are two structural systems within a licensed company to take money from the contributing public that at maturity date.
Take as much as they can from the people and give as little as they can back. That is just what insurance do.
Well, that's not true.
Well,
That's not true.
That is my experience with them anyway.
There is, on that particular structure, X number of dollars is paid, and if you do the math, over a period of time, you would have in fact received more in terms of numbers, not to take into consideration the rate of inflation, time, rate, interest, as the case might be.
But they take your money, Stanley. Don't make it sound like they're so, altruistic, and they just take your money, and when you're ready for it, they just give back more than what you would have given them. That's not what they do. They take your money and they invest it in some high-risk ventures, which is what happened in these cases when they've collapsed, and then they take what the bulk of it and give you some of it. So don't make it sound like they really want to do good for you. It's about the company.
No, that's not.
It's about the bottom line.
I am
for the
just
company.
saying to you, structurally and contractually, the company sets in place a structure.
Okay,
and tells you-
programmally and schematically, does it fit under any one of them?
I remember what you said, schematically, and that is just another adjective to more or less describe a scheme. I'm just saying to you that contractually and legally, the company says, you pay me $10 per month, and at the end of the year, you would have put in $120. If the structure matures in 1 year, the company, based on the contractual arrangement, might give you $130. Of course,
Or they may give you none.
based on the time passed with the contractual arrangement in place, you would get back mathematically more than you would have put in.
It's supposed to.
They will give you the benefit of insurance, of interest, which would have added to you 120 to bring it to the 130. I'm just drawing a reference in terms of numbers. But that is a
That's the
legal
fundamental principle on which it is built.
legal
and we understand
arrangement
that.
based on the structure of the company.
In principle, that's the way it's supposed to work, Stanley, and we accept that. But the reason why some of us would put it under a scheme is because a lot of times people get shafted.
When you can't deliver, it turns out to be a scheme.
So-
It might have good intentions and sounds good, but I think when you don't deliver, it turns out to be a scheme. Scheme is a kind of word. Pat didn't define it, but it's just something that it's less serious and have a less notion of commitment in it. It seems like to me, people get away with schemes. Some people find themselves in jail because they're running schemes.
So now you can start out as a program and end up as a scheme?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's the way I look at it.
But that's just using it colloquially, mind you, the scheme thing. Nobody go to the dictionary and expect this thing.
No, but
Not a conventional
yeah, but you notice I said
definition.
with the Social Security,
Yes.
informal presentations and representations, they say the Social Security scheme.
Yes, which is okay.
Because anything can happen the same way now. That's like insurance company.
Well, the way it sounds like we're heading for some headwinds as it relates to the Social Security scheme. So I don't know.
They invest the money in risky situations sometimes, not all the time, but the fact that you cannot deliver when the people are expected you to, when you're contracted to, it makes it, it fits in a different category because it's what kind of contract is it? A failed contract, a contract that
So, Mr. Stanley, though, you were referencing British American and the fact that you said they'll be paying some money.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That people have been invited to come and collect a certain amount based on what.
That's when? That was today.
No,
I
since
don't know
last
what,
Friday,
I don't know
think
what
saw
the
that.
date was, but I know that people
Friday?
have been invited to come to the Nevis Cooperative Credit Union. I think that was one of the venues. And I believe people have, in fact, collected, because if they tell you to come and collect some of what you would have invested, I'm certain that they would have had quite a number of people who showed up to collect something, because some of whom never thought they would have gotten back anything when the thing went belly up. But based on the efforts of collective governments within the region, people have been able to get something back.
Okay, let me just take this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Hello, good evening. I want to go right back on the sponsorship. When you see that they call and said, like, Culturama said that they're going to have prize giving Saturday, next week Saturday, and then you realize you have to call it off and say, well, you know, you can't do the Culturama again, you put off until further notice. Would that mean, Weber, if they the sponsorship, as Mr. Stanley said, they don't come up with the sponsorship that they promised them, you must look at it, Weber, got it be like a them big thing like banks and them kind of things, because only them, they just give the big money. And then when you realize it, that Weber, Stanley forget to say they only not get advertisement alone, they get the advertisement right through until Culturama finish. And then not that alone, they get tickets. So maybe for each show, for each night, maybe they get even 15, 20 tickets a night to every function. So then when you have to check up all the kind of money there, Weber, it's a lot of money. So why don't the sponsors who don't already get their free advertisement, and as Mr. Stanley said, some of them don't make money off of that and whatnot. So why they don't come up with the money and they pay it into Culturama, so then we can move on, because the Californians, them, you hear them in town say, why be happening, you ain't get no money yet, you know, we don't know where them are going, you know, whatnot, and I don't expect I don't expect Abonati to come out and tell them exactly what is what, but common sense could tell you when they say they are waiting and the sponsors, it got to be big business places and so on and them kind of things. So they should come up, man, because they don't get all the tickets, they don't enjoy all the shows and the advertisements and everything. So I think they should come up. That's what I think.
Yes.
I'm expecting the director to come back and tell us specifically what happened, and let's name them and shame them. Yeah. I mean, I sponsored in my little organization some years ago one of the ladies who won, and for sure when we made the commitment, we knew that we had to come up with our sponsorship responsibility.
Maybe it sound like that was a scheme then, if they didn't pay.
It's an agreement. You have committed yourself to sponsor whatever the
So you call it a
activity is.
program or a scheme?
It's part of the program.
Oh, that's
And
part
it's
of the
an,
program.
it is an arrangement which is formulated into an agreement. And I'm not sure, no, we didn't sign anything when we decided to sponsor one of the contestants. But it was a verbal agreement, a verbal commitment. And we were proud to have sponsored and to know that our sponsorship bore fruit to the extent where the contestant won. So I don't think they had to wait until they made money out of it to follow through with their sponsorship arrangement. Most of these sponsors are institutions. I can't tell you whom the others are. Every year I give Culturama a little something because I know that I benefit from the community at large, and thus I would walk in there and I would give them
A little something.
a little something to help defray the cost with a,
Well, it'll seem like you need to double up this year because they need more than a little something.
and collectively we all benefited. You know how many people were in town enjoying themselves? And it is something that gives Nevis a certain amount of publicity, positive publicity. And it is something that Nevisians who live abroad look forward to with reference to coming home. And thus, when they come home, people who live at home get a little something from those who are coming.
Really?
I'm certain, because I had, he's almost like my oldest son. And sure enough, he took me out to dinner. He paid for it. Because he said, I can't pay back what, because I took him out at age 16. His mother was in St. Thomas. His mother didn't send for him. 6 months after I was here, I took my brother out, and 2 weeks after I sent for my cousin. And he's the one who came back, and like I've said, we all benefit from Culturama. And with that benefit, let's cough up and defray the cost of Culturama. It's our festivity. It gives us the good publicity, and ultimately it's something that we have to keep in continuity. Culturama. Webo.
Naya, you wanted to get in?
No, Webo, I think, I've expressed the same opinion as Mr. Stanley. It's something we don't want to hear, but what Mr. Stanley said, when he sponsored the lady for the Queen show, he didn't sign anything, and I hope that's not the case in 2019, because that would be reckless. Of course, yeah, out of our own goodwill and consciousness, you would like to live up to these promises and obligations, but that important signature must be there, because that is when, to me, you're really forming a contract with the Culturama committee. Without that, of course, it's just left to your own conscience and conscience, wherever you want to put it. It's so I don't want to hear that that's the reason why, or that is the case, that the intended sponsors didn't have to sign. I don't think that is a workable situation in 2019 at all. So I'm just hoping that that's not the case, even though it was, Mr. Stanley's case, and he came through. And I would have come through regardless if I signed yes or not. But that signature is important.
Well, it is important, but it's not that all important. The fact is that if you agree to sponsor, it's a contract without a signature, but it tells you, based on integrity, that you will fulfill your obligation based on what you have verbally agreed to. And a verbal contract can stand up wherever, stand scrutiny based on the information and the people involved. You don't need to have a signed contract to fulfill your legal obligation.
These contracts and agreements you refer to, Mr. Stanley, would have action to be done by both parties? Action to be carried out
yes,
by both parties?
It's a commitment on both sides.
Right.
Which means
so that work with me. So that if you promise to sell me, you promise to buy a vehicle from me, and you promise to pay me $60,000, and it describes the condition that the vehicle must be in. And then I find, or you find, that the vehicle is not, did not live up to the description that the agreement was for. And then I go and I tell people, Mr. Stanley didn't pay me. and then people say Mr. Stanley is wrong without ascertaining or being told that the other part of the agreement was not carried out. Are you, as Edric W. Stanley would say, are you following me?
Yeah, well, to be honest, the money to be paid is a consideration. And in the area that may not have come through, you could sue for specific performance. Meaning, if for some reason on the other side the vehicle did not meet your expectation based on what was promised, whether it should have AC or automatic or manual transmission, as the case might be, a year bag, as the
So
case might be, power windows.
in effect, if the other side, the expectation or the what was prescribed was not lived up to, it will be unfair for you to condemn the other party, right?
Well, the thing is, if one side doesn't live up to its commitment or its side of the bargain, then there is ground for
But what I'm saying
a
is,
lawsuit for specific performance.
In the hypothetical that I gave you, is it fair to just for the judge or the person, the adjudicator, to hear that he did not give me the money, and then you just say, oh, well, that is wrong?
Well, you can say that he didn't give me money and that is wrong.
Okay.
But on the one hand, why didn't he give you the money?
Oh.
He didn't give you the money because you, on the other hand, who's supposed to cover the money, realize that you're being shortchanged on the other side.
Oh.
And therefore, you have grounds for not coughing up, and therefore you got a breach of contract.
So I just wanted that to come out.
But it's simple, but at the same time, it can be verbal, it can be written.
Right. But the point is, as Naya said, and thank you, Naya, that I would like to point out, always remind us, balance.
Yeah, well, like I said, you can't have a one-sided thing, because if it is
But
one-sided...
we were doing that.
Well,
You agree with that?
It happens all the time.
Okay. I just wanted to...
Just
wanted to...
one-sided things.
Just wanted to put that out there. I got to take a break.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Builder's Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. We've got over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builder's Paradise has what you need. Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. Call them today at 466-4938.
From Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio.
Back with our remaining minutes in Thought That Get Results with Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Nye Liberd, and Edric W. Stanley.
Well, last week we had this, or week before we had this comment about the ocean or the waterfront properties. And I must bring to the fore the enormous amount of money that the Four Seasons Resort has spent on shoring up its waterfront. I sometimes would see a barge right in the middle, right in Charlestown, anchored in the waters off Charlestown. And they would be dredging sand. I understood there's a sandbank there. I do not know if that's true, but maybe by wave action, because of how the coastal zone is, that sandbank probably builds up, but at the same time, I know that sand has been taken from that location and would be placed down at Four Seasons, and that cost them an enormous amount of money for the retrieving of that sand, the transporting of that sand, and also the replacement of that sand at the Four Seasons Resort. So what I am advocating is for the entire coastline to be looked at in a very comprehensive way and to ensure that we can bolster the coastline with whether sand, rocks, or sand and rocks, as the case might be, to ensure that we maintain coastline properties or shoreline properties or oceanfront properties to the extent where they do not lose their value. And with this setback that we have come about, I hope the government in its wisdom now recognizes that the law that is supposedly in effect that devalues oceanfront property depending on its size would be repealed to the extent where the final alternative to expand the ocean, the coastline properties by shoring up, by whatever means, whether sand, stone, or both, so that we can keep Nevis the size it is, because ultimately, if we don't take action now, based on erosion, Nevis will come smaller and smaller. Fortunately, we are not below sea level, and thus it will take some time before the ocean wave action eats away at the coastal zone or coastline and reduces all property value and property sizes, as the case might be. We must take a page out of the Book of Four Seasons and see what they're doing to ensure that we expand the coastline. And I'll tell you, there are people looking at the waterfront property down at Rest Haven.
Let me just take this, Edric. Hello, good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good night.
Go ahead, Mr. Stanley.
And I'm hoping that people would look at it from the standpoint of shoring up. And people have been looking at that Rest Haven property going forward with the hope that it could be expanded and be reinforced to ensure that all that erosion that has occurred will be minimized or curtailed to the point where the land mass would be expanded going forward. Take back some of the ocean, land reclamation. And it is not difficult to do. We set up some reclamation walls, bring some of that stuff from the mountain, and recapture maybe at 200 or 300 feet of the ocean westward and rejoining the landmass. Fill it in, and over a period of time, it will be solid land, planting trees, and make Nevis back to the 50 square mile it was when I was going to primary school.
So you're proposing that government extend or protect the shoreline of properties, even private properties you're thinking about?
Well, we know that the ocean belongs to the government.
I also know that there are a lot of us who have properties in the shoreline who would like that property become bigger. But my concern is if it's fair for government to take up the people money to make some privately owned property bigger.
Well, I can't tell you what designation it would take after the government has expended resources, because I know that right on Low Street, the sand was right there, and once they put in that Samuel Hunkins driveway.
That was good. But is it fair that government do that to privately owned property?
That
the
becomes
question that I'm asking you.
That becomes public. That becomes public. What I'm saying to you, it's there now. The Samuel Hunkins Drive is a public highway. So you can't say that it has become private lands, but the ocean came directly onto private lands in the earlier years. But as the government put in that retaining wall on the Samuel Hawkins Drive coastline portion, it becomes private property. I mean, public property. So to answer your question, it would not be privately held land anymore. It would be for public use, for public purposes, as the case might be. If you follow the
Yeah, but I could understand.
structure.
I could understand the Samuel Hawkins Drive. Government want the road to go around the Beffront, and so they extend that. But in certain land locations, say over Cadesville area, where I see private homes directly on the beach, and obviously they face erosion too. Are you suggesting that government should expand and prevent such erosion to these privately owned properties?
Well, ultimately the government has the last say, and eventually they might decide to move
Take them away.
the road that is there and place the road more
In
westward, more westward. And of course, it gives everybody an opportunity when they're going through the land to see the ocean from that particular location where they would have put in the new road. But
So
again,
in the situation where they're at Paradise, where the homes were built too close to the sea, one can fantasize about government reclaiming land, and then they would be safe with the court.
they will be safe with the court. Did you
Yes,
say that?
the court have ordered the destruction of those places. What
Well,
I'm saying, if government reclaim land in that area and go out 200 feet, then those buildings would be unsafe ground.
Well, I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into the legalese with that. I'm just saying to you that I think the government has an obligation to ensure that the coastal erosion that has been taking place must be minimized. And it cannot be done privately in the true sense of the word, although the Four Seasons Resort has done whatever it's done, I think maybe with the blessings of the government, to do land reclamation, the dredging and the replacing of sand or relocating of sand to ensure that when we got another Lenny, they would not be hit as badly as they had been hit in the past. And it is to the benefit of all.
I agree with you, Stanley. But also there is an example right there going down towards Jessup, past Jessup, on the beach, where they used to have a place down there called Sand Dollar. It's no more. It's been washed away. It's important that people understand when you shift sand in a certain area, move sand, go against nature, it affects another area, and that's what we've been experiencing here on Ireland. Of course, Four Seasons is very, 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 very important to us. So we don't mind there to have all the sand, and Gallows Bay don't have none, because there's 700 people there at work. But is that really what
Let me just take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, what I'm saying that the Paradise location is not really a problem. It is normally the government had to dredge it first, or the property had to do a dredging before they build the condos. So, to me, it's not a problem based on how they have it. It was supposed to be done properly prior to building the condos. You understand?
Who was supposed to do it, sir?
The property.
The property owners.
Yeah. Paradise was supposed to bring in, what do you call those badges? Dredge the sand first to create a beach, proper beach, and then you build the villas. So you would not have a problem with the, like erosion now, with the ocean.
Okay.
The caller, might I ask you, you're stating facts? Are you stating facts?
Yeah, because in San Martin, that's what they did in Great Bay.
Right, but
Government had just great bit because the water used to come right up under the Catholic Church and all those buildings on Front Street.
Okay, so
that was one I learned from.
So you're making a suggestion then.
Yes, suggestion that.
Oh, I got it. So that.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then even now that they're having a dispute with those homeowners, they could still dredge the area and create the beach, so it wouldn't create any problem in the future. So the government can spend some money now on the combination with the property and create a brand new beach area. You understand?
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Edric, you see how important it is when you ask a little question for clarification?
Oh, yes. At least you know that it is a suggestion rather than it was something that was planned by government.
But I want to mention quickly, I think I interrupted Naya though. Naya, go ahead.
No, you didn't. Just wanted to make the point that wherever you move sand sometimes, when you disrupt the settings of nature here in these little islands, it affects other places. And as I say, sand on those places are no more. Maybe not. Maybe because of the sand dredging and the very important Four Seasons, the relevance of Four Seasons to the economy. We want to ensure that there is sand there, while other places are totally eroded.
Okay. I just wanted to make a point. In general, of two things. One, leadership is no easy street.
Has never been.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think, don't get it. Leadership is no easy street. Getting a title or position, in my view, is far easier than to be able to lead effectively sometimes. That's point number one. Point number two, I see a trend that is happening which is not nice, but it is a fact. I've watched over decades people campaign, they press forward, they argue, they scheme, and they do what they will, as they should, to get in certain positions and places, just to oppress and spite and do what is not nice.
True.
And that is not good.
Can't be.
So I just wanted to make those 2 points. Leadership is no easy street. And when you get into certain positions and you have to make those tough decisions, that's when it counts. It's no easy street. And when people are considering it, they should take it very seriously.
That is sound advice, Webo. We see it and it is so, I'm kind of sorry sometimes for these people who behave in a certain way. Because you have the high expectations, and when you get let down, you're like, really, I didn't expect that this person would behave this way, or, that person would behave that way. But people should always remember, you should never use your station in life to suppress anybody else. Regardless of their race, their color, their creed, you're not supposed to do that. That is just not kosher. And I see it happening so often, and sometimes people pull the trump card, but the first thing they do is that they pull the trump card because they're in charge, They think that they could do you this, they could turn you away, they could, do all manner of evil to other people, and I'm like, that's not why people would have elected you to behave in that manner. So people ought to really listen and be guided accordingly. Like I said, leadership is not easy, and of course, we're in a democracy, and sometimes some people get, suppressed just because they talk, Rebel. And that is so pathetic because we keep saying, well, we have freedoms. We have all these freedoms. Yeah, freedom for who? You have freedom of speech, but only the politician could talk. That is not right. And I see that happening so often. And I'm sometimes just sorry for these people who just don't understand how it is to lead and how it is to behave in certain positions. And what we have to do, we have to pray for them. And when we can't pray for them, and when people pray not helping, you just have to vote them out. But is to get enough people to understand. I seriously think, that some places, and maybe it is ripe for us now, Some places really need technocratic, leadership, people who just go inside and concentrate on doing good for the country. All this talk, and this party this and party that, and when you go in position, you look out for this person, look out for that, and that person could starve. I mean, that's not what we need, We're in such a vulnerable position, today you think you have something and tomorrow you don't have it, There's no guarantee, and the quality of life is what really should matter. But if you have people who are going into politics, just to suppress other people, I think they're in the wrong field, really, but that is what is being allowed sometimes. And I find that as people, we're just quiet. We just take things. Somebody was complaining to me about something, and it's like, well, it's one thing I know. I have one big X on it. I was like, no, it's not just about the big X. You have a voice. Say something, But like I said, Jesus walked this earth, and it wasn't easy either, And leadership, ultimately, is not an easy thing. But if you can't lead, and you're not going to lead for the proper reason, and you're not going to lead people to be in better lives and better livelihood, leave it alone, You're just not right for the position if that is what you use your office to do. If you're going to use your office to suppress other people and turn by people and do all manner of evil to people, get out. You're not fit for that office.
Just before you get in, Mr. Stan, just a footnote, though. I get it that in a person adding or making a comment, they can be specific as Dr. Bartlett was. But when I speak of leadership, I look at it in a broad sense, not just politics, because I would think that at our institution here, we have leadership roles. And in the churches, and the schools where you're not really elected either, and so on, all these leadership roles.
Of course.
And in those areas as well, people do oppressing. And they do good things and not so good things as well. So when I say leadership is no easy street, it encompasses the whole broad agenda.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make that clear. And that is not to say that a person cannot expound on it, refer to what I was saying, and make a specific reference or example. Edric.
Well, I recognize the hesitation of you and Pat, and I'm saying to you that people will always be people. And positions that are there, once you remove somebody, it means you have to put somebody else there. And if you were to check the trend, it is no different. We got the same complaint over and over and over and over. It may not be coming from the same quarters, from the same people, as the case might be. But if you truly do the analysis, it comes down to people, favoritism. I mean, look at what is happening to our cricket game, West Indies team. I understood most of the hand-picked people are from Barbados, and they somewhat myopic, not understanding that our game is going down the tube simply because of the people who are managing our game. Most of them are from Barbados. This is what I was told. I don't have time now to listen to the game, study the game, even watch the game, but I still love the game. But back to normal here, in terms of leadership, in terms of elected positions. It means when you decide to X out somebody, you have to check in somebody. And you look at the role, the person whom you have X'd out, and the person whom you have checked in, and see what happens ultimately. We come back to the same old.
So
oppression, favoritism, all the lack thereof, and as a result, we need to replace them. Replace them with whom?
Technocrats. I'm all for technocrats at this point.
And they too would say, I am the man in here. You come to this agency, I run this agency, and therefore you follow the rules of this agency. And sometimes they even bend the rules to ensure that you know who is in charge. All right? So let us be very fair, let us be frank, let us understand the role of leadership. let us understand the role of authority and position. Sure, it is good to have a utopic view of certain things. Let's put people in there who truly going to govern based on the structure of governance. Let us be fair. But people got their favorites. The devil got a friend.
You're trying to suggest what, Stanley? That
I'm trying to say that
you shouldn't say people. You shouldn't use their office to.
There are people who would use the same criticism by those who were checked out or X'd out, and soon as somebody was checked in, only a matter of time before they too face the same barrage of criticism as to.
But we need to change that culture. That's just the point.
You're not going to get it changed because you're dealing with human beings.
In politics or in church. In church, I have the option, really, you know. If I go to a church and I don't like what's going on there, I could leave. You know, what am I going to do if I'm in a country and I don't like what the politicians go do? I go leave. I don't have any places to go. Why should I be held at ransom? Why should I be treated, you know, badly in my own country? You know, that's not fair.
There are options.
We should always ask for better.
There are
we should
options.
always ask for better and demand for better and never try to, you know.
And expect better too.
Right, and not try to play it down.
And don't take it as the norm, you see. I mean, as if we are saying, okay, you're in a leadership and you must exalt yourself in such ways, and you will find yourself doing what the one that just been removed was doing. We're asking for better, so we vote in somebody and we expect better.
Of course.
So yes, we are seriously disappointed when they fall in the same lane. It happens every day here in politics. NRP come in despite people, CCM come in despite
the same
people.
Thing. There's no change.
There is no change. And that's why the whole political culture is like, I mean, we don't trust, we you know. I wish we can live in a world whereby, you know, you can just express your feeling and express your mind, say what you want, and express that too when it comes to the ballot box without fear and discrimination. You know, I've been discriminated by every government since I know myself. I feel, especially since I've been on radio. You know,
yes.
But I'm impervious to it.
Let me take this. Good evening. Thank you for holding. Good evening. You're on the air.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
I'll say this much, Pat. I can't agree with you more. Everything you say, whoever started it, leadership is a heck of a thing. And Pat, you finish it off. But there's no ball who are come. Have a good evening.
All right, thank you very much. Who was it? Naya? I interrupted.
Yeah, but you know, I'm impervious to it. And
okay, Naya, let me just do it again. Good evening, caller. You have a minute.
Yes, good evening. Yeah, Pat was speaking about leadership and how they behave. I mean, I think she's talking about politicians. But I think that as a people, you notice that when you have an election coming up, they come in and they're asking you for a job. You give them a job. Then people who put them, they need to understand that they are the ones who have the power. They are there to serve you. And if they are not doing things right, then you have a right to remove them. Then they are not supposed to be inside to be bossing around people. We are the bosses. And I think that as the electorate, we don't understand, and we are not educated towards, I mean, that situation. I mean, and all over you find this kind of thing happening.
Okay, caller. Naya?
Yeah, the caller talking about the social and political contract that exists between we and the politician. But yet, when we don't see their side is being fulfilled, we must not talk about it. And when we talk about it, then we ostracize and discriminated against.
Well, you know the price of freedom is not free.
The price of freedom is not free.
Okay.
But Jesus already paid it all, yeah? I shouldn't have to do it, you know? But people, seriously though, people ought to be able to express themselves and say what they feel, what they like about things that are going on and what they don't like. And that's how we're going to, if we debate things, in a meaningful way, we ought to be able to get progress and sustainable, change. But what we're getting, if you're going to tell me that, because I have to consider that, who come in going to be worse than who gone. I mean, a lot of people are willing to take the chance. I'm not on any side. I've never been on a side. All I've ever asked is to be a part of this community, to be able to say, when I see things that are wrong and say things that I think that we could do better. And if you're going to castigate me for that, then I don't think you deserve to lead. But, I'm not saying that of any particular leader. I'm just making the general comment, You always have to, add these disclaimers. Notwithstanding, you're going to still get, victimized anyway.
That's the last word. Dr. Patricia Bartlett, Conrad Nye Liebert, Edric W. Stanley. This program repeats tomorrow at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that gets results. You all have a wonderful evening.